Now I'm going to switch grits to do this MDF crown. And I'm going to use an 80 grit sapphire on that. Same thing, it's going to stick with the Velcro. So slap that on. Now, typically people cut 2 miters for their crown molding, which can actually open up with seasonal movement. What we're going to do today is cope crown molding so that when a notch is in this board, it'll actually form fit into it. So I'm going to take this piece and secure it with 2 clamps. I do this on my miter saw extension wings with just 1 clamp. But I press the material against the wing, and it helps it. Now what I'm doing here with this, I found you could never do this with the straight features of the quick clamp. That would crush the profile of the molding. But what I found is with these screw clamps and the circular feature, you can put it right up in the curve and twist it down, and even on the MDF, not put a dent in it. So you got to watch out for that because it's not too hard to do that. You want to make sure this is pretty sturdy. This got a little wiggle to it. That doesn't really bother me too much because when I'm doing the cutting, I'm going to actually hold the material with my hand. We're going to do this with 4 tools. First, the RAS, obviously. We're going to use a coping saw. We're going to use a really sharp razor blade. And we're going to use this piece of sandpaper, which is an 80 grit sapphire also. You could use the same grit as you're using with the RAS. But what I like to do with this is fold it in half, and then I like to try to make a crease in the middle, and that makes a curvature there. And what you can do is you can pinch it on the top and flare it out at this part. So now I can do my wider pieces. This is going to work much better on a bigger piece of crown than this small piece of crown. But it basically gives you 2 profiles. You have this smaller feature here and this wider, broader feature here. And then usually where I bent it, I use these pieces as my straights. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this out and we're going to sand this out. But what's important is along the profile line, we want to leave it a little large and come back and finish with this piece of sandpaper. You don't want to try to get too close because 1, it's too hard to get a sander in there too close, and 2, you just don't want to be getting that close with a power tool. This is going to have a lot more finesse with your hand. So I'm going to show you how to do this right here. Now, when I'm using the coping saw, I like to stand on this side to cut right now what looks like the top, but this is really the bottom of the crown molding. This is where our tip's going to be. And the tip, some people cut off the tips, I don't. You want your tips to all be the same size. And then you want your notches to all be the same size. And the reason being is you don't want to set up a piece of crown. If this were the room, you'd run a straight cut all the way to a straight cut with a notch, and then you'd have the next piece of molding would slide in and the tip would go into the notch. I've found that you want a dead perfect notch, but if you are going to mess it up at all, you want to make it deeper than not as deep. Because if it's not as deep, you're going to get up there and it's not going to fit. And a lot of guys carry a block and try to hit it in, but the piece, as you can see right here, is really just like a sliver, and you don't want to mess with that too much because it will break on you and then ruin your piece. So I'm going to notch out the piece in a second, but what I'm going to do is start here. Now, when I'm using the coping saw on this crown molding, what I like to do is use my finger as a guide. So I'm going to set up here. I always start with the saw way at the bottom. I line that up right where I want it. Now I'm going to make that a little big. Now I use my finger to keep it in line, and I go all the way down. Then I come back up. And the reason that I do that is because, in my opinion, with this saw specifically, it's much harder to pull up than it is to pull down. So if you start, you can drag the full blade. By the time you've got that, you've developed a channel for the saw to stay in. It's going to be much easier on the upcut. So when doing this, I cut this one just a little big, because I'm going to show you what you do in case you cut it big. But when you come all the way back, but then you want to angle your blade and get it back a little more. Now you're going to underhand it, and you're going to chunk that piece out. And there's your exposed tip. Now that's a pretty decent sized tip. I'm going to sand that down and show you guys how I actually do that, because it's not always perfect getting them exactly the way you want them to. So over here, I'm going to use the same finger, and I'm going to start way low, and I'm going to leave just a little brown. I want to see just a little brown on there. And I'm going to come all the way down. Now I'm in the channel, come back up. Now this, you really want to back cut. But you want to blow that off. You want to blow that off and make sure you see where your line is, because you don't want to go too far. So I come back to this side, and I'm going to notch this out now. So that is ready for the RAS. So we're going to come over here with the RAS now. Now, as I move this direction, I'm going to want the dust shroud on this side. I'm going to come through the molding, but I'm going to want to turn it when I get back in from this direction. I'm going to come down, and then I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to loop back up and just get the tail end off. I'm going to be angling this pretty severe, because I want to get all that meat out of there and make it so that it can not ride up on the profile. So that's how long it takes to basically work that out. Now I've left a bunch of things big for you to kind of show you what you can get away with here. Right now, some things are totally not going to work out. You know, that tip's too big. Right in this area, right here, there's too much material. I'm going to flip it over at the end, and I'm just going to look at it to try to see, you know, did I get enough angle? I can feel it, and I can tell you right now, I probably want to go back here. You don't want to rush it. What you want to do, you don't want to get up there and have it not fit. So it's better to take off more and not have to deal with that. Now I always start at the top, which is really now my bottom. This will be the top of the crown molding, and I work my way like this. So we're going to use the flat side right here, and we're going to sand this down to the white. Now I'm going to turn this piece of sandpaper, it's already in a good motion, to come to me like this. That piece is almost good. Now I'm going to bend it like this, and I'm going to sand this down. Now this is where I like the sapphire better than the Reuben. The sapphire, when I bend this like this, none of the abrasives fall off. I can tell you right now from experience that when you use a Reuben paper, I don't know what the difference is, but the second you bend it, it cracks in a line there. And the second you touch it to something, it cracks off. So in my opinion, this paper is what I like the most, and I can show you why. On a small piece of crown like this little piece, this bend right here is going to be my best friend. I'm going to stick that in there, and I'm going to move that around until I basically get that out. Now I'm going to take this and go like this. And I feel it with my thumb. I kind of know what the tolerances are that I'm looking for, so I don't have to get underneath there, I just feel it. Now, the tip is much more difficult. You want to take this flat spot. I'm going to show you another way. There's two ways I've done it. One way I do it in my hand. The other way, this is the easier way to do it on the bench. Actually, I'm going to do it this way. You hold it with your finger like this, and you move this tip down. Now that tip is much more the size we want, but we want to make this nice and right angle right here, because that's going to fit on a flat spot. So we're going to sand that down just a little bit. So that is a piece that's ready. Now, you're going to have to notch your first piece first before you put it up. And you only want to nail down to about 32 inches away from where you're going to be. You nail to just there, and you leave that hanging. And the reason you leave it hanging is you might have to tilt this back and forth a little bit here, a little bit there, to get both miters to meet, because nothing's going to be perfect for you. So when you do this, you definitely want to have a really sharp, brand new utility blade. What we want to do is we want to cut this at a 45. We're dealing with 45s here. So we want this to be 45. And we're going to eye that, but while I eye it, I'm also going to use my thumb to guide it, just like I do with everything. You want to try to have two hands on the tools at all times. Now, like I said, this 45, if that goes wrong, you're going to have a little bit of a mess up. It could be little, it could be big, but that 45 has to coordinate with that 45. So if you were to drop like a 55-degree angle here or something like that, it's not going to work out. So you really want to get that to be nice and 45. And then you're going to cut it down and then cut it in like this. And I'm going to rock the blade backwards and forwards and move it up and down so that it just chunks that out. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to get it up here. I'm going to hold the blade like this, and I'm going to sit it right there. So I'm like, you know, if that's a 90, now I close my eye, and it looks like there's two 45s there. And then I'm going to hold my thumb, get that where I want it, hold my thumb, and now we're going to move it back and forth. Now, you want to get a good eye on that, and you want to take it slow. You're gonna notch out a little here and a little there. And you don't want to come into this front face. You want to keep your blade back this way more, because that's the part that won't be seen. And so you just do a little bit at a time. And that's what the notch looks like right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this crown together like that. And I'll show you right now. I'm going to go up here. The one reason that the coping is better is it's more versatile. Excuse me, puppy. it's more versatile in corners that aren't 90. You know, I made this setup so that, you know, there's some rock there. And what you're going to want to do is bring your first piece in and get that situated. And then you're going to take your mating piece and put that in. And there you go. You've got your crown molding joint coated with the RAS.